What if I told you educational transformation is possible? My name is Deondra Rose, and I'm a professor of public policy, political science, and history. I was born weighing 2 pounds, so I was a premature baby, and my mom was getting signals that said, well, your daughter is very small, like she really might have some challenges, don't expect too much. And she said, actually, I expect everything. And she went about working to help me become the kind of person who could make a difference. One of my earliest memories is sitting with my grandmother, like on Saturday mornings as she's doing her homework, and she'd have these huge nursing texts, and I would be sitting right next to her with my book, whatever it was, upside down, before I learned to read. But really learning that school is cool, education is cool. Like, I loved the idea of homework. So by the time I went to school, I was just, a very excited student. I can say, standing here all these years hence, that pouring into young people can make a huge difference. It did to me, and it really is the kind of thing that I work to do for all of my students. Today's students are fantastic in that they never cease to surprise me with their curiosity or their confidence that they can make a difference. So they really want to understand the problems that exist, and they want the whole story. Recently, I had a student say, somehow I spend a lot of time with people who are completely different from me, people whose perspectives are completely different from my own. So I end up in a lot of arguments. And so I need to find tools and strategies for being able to talk across those differences in ways that don't lead us to want to stomp off into our respective corners. And in order to do that, there has to be some base level of trust that, others will be able to hear what I'm saying. And even if I'm not explaining it perfectly, if the words aren't perfect, that there's still some level of willingness to give me the benefit of the doubt or to help me as I'm navigating through this difficult topic. And I think that educational component is crucial because in a lot of conversations and a lot of conversational spaces in our society, they're not organized around education. The goal is not necessarily to learn something new, but it's just to make your case or to win an argument. But to be able to say, I'm trying to figure this out. Let me show you, actually, I don't know the answer here. I don't have my final position, but here's what I've been thinking about, and here's what I'm wondering. That's what true leadership is. It's a hallmark of the most impressive leadership. It's someone who's able to recognize, like, I don't know all the answers. Here are the gaps in what I know, and here's how I can figure out how to bridge those gaps. So what we're working to do here at Duke is foster the development of people who are excited to work on teams, who are capable of working well on teams, who are not so solely wedded to their own unique perspectives that they're incapable of listening to and learning from others. For the policymakers of the future, for the leaders of the future, we need people who work well in teams, who work well collaboratively, who can communicate even when the times are tough, even when people have different perspectives on how to get things done. So basically, every year I reach out to a broad array of policymakers, members of the North Carolina House, the North Carolina Senate, city councils, county commissioners, and we ask, are there any topics that you're working on where you could use a little bit of research support? And our students have worked in small teams to develop answer to these questions in the form of really tight, well-researched, well-cited policy memos, and they've really made a difference. And they're also getting the opportunity to engage in a form of public service right here, right now, as students. So, to my mind, it shows that, you can absolutely, after graduation, make a difference, but you can also make a tremendous difference right now with the skills that you have and that you're developing. I've always felt that education is such a crucial zone for democracy, for developing and investing in citizens. And after doing this work, I'm even more invested in higher education as a space for doing that. I have here my latest book. It's called The Power of Black Excellence, HBCUs and the Fight for American Democracy. For HBCUs, there hasn't been this sense of an ivory tower of providing education that is separate from the messiness of society or the messiness of politics or the uncertainties that exist out in society. HBCUs have always been sort of in the midst of that complexity, and they've embraced it. And part of it is because they work very intentionally to help foster the development of engaged citizens. I don't think it's incidental that you have young people who come together in institutions of higher education and they ask questions. They ask questions about why things are the way that they are and how do we get to a place that's better than where we are now. And so that's really, I think, part and parcel of what higher ed organizations, institutions like HBCUs, institutions like Duke University have to offer students. It's providing them with space to come together and to raise questions and to think about solutions. What should education for the 21st century look like? What are the major needs in our society in the 21st century? To my mind, supporting democracy is one of the greatest. If we look at the long arc of history, we have yet to get it perfectly right. Even at the beginning, in the 18th century, when policymakers are really thinking through this idea of independence and revolution and really setting forth bold principles that would guide a new nation, like in this democratic experiment, we really raised some bold ideas and in practice fell short in some ways. And over time, there were people who saw those bold ideas and raised questions. What do we mean by a freedom or justice or equal opportunity? Like, what do we mean by these principles and who do we mean? And so I think the more that we can do in higher education to continue that legacy, to continue helping people understand, it's actually through politics, through pluralism, through coming together and engaging in, some tough conversations that we actually can get things right. I think that's what gives me so much hope. And I think that's where we can really make a difference and continue to make a difference in our society.